do the anti-ICE protesters really speak for? Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, that is now the question. Many are asking as the anti-ICE protests and the violence is now spreading in other cities. I predicted this was going to happen. Many of you predicted it was going to happen, and it's starting to come true. San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Atlanta, even now some pockets in New York. We are starting to see now riots, clashes with police, tear gas being deployed, barricades being set up by these anti-ICE pro-criminal, really anti-American protesters, these rioters, and it's only getting worse. Everything is building for their big so-called No Kings protest on Saturday, which I'm going to get into. And emerging now from this metastasizing, spreading, and growing movement to challenge Trump's very presidency and federal immigration law, and our sovereignty, and in many ways our ability to deport criminal illegal aliens, is a clip. There are many clips, obviously, many videos and images, but one now in particular is really starting to symbolize and embody the essence of the Democratic Party, the essence of liberalism, and the essence now of this anti-American, anti-ICE movement that is now, the left is now pushing in city after city after city. This is in New York, where there was again a huge anti-ICE protest. They took to the streets. It was fairly peaceful, blocking traffic, preventing people from going to work, going on, calling for violence, chanting for violence. But so far, Eric Adams has put a lot of police on the streets, and he says he will not tolerate any looting or burning whatsoever. And so far, they have been relatively contained. But the numbers are huge. And I want you now to hear this. These are two of the anti-ICE insurrectionists. These are two of the rioters. They're both white. They're both obviously liberal, if not Marxist. That one is a man, one is a woman. They are blocking a young black mother with children from being able to go to work. So you've got ICE protesters everywhere. They're chanting in the background, F ICE, whatever. Viva Mexico, Viva Mexico. And you've got two anti-ICE protesters, this clown, this guy in a man bun, honestly, he looks like a jerk, and this other white, entitled woman. And they are lecturing this young black mother who is pleading with them, and she's being very polite, frankly, much more polite than I would have been. And she's saying, I can't get to work. You're blocking me. I'm going to be late for work. I won't be able to get to work. I may lose my job. She's pleading with them, saying, I have to put food on the table to feed my children. Please, I just need you to, I have no issue with what you guys are doing. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm not trying to prevent you. I just need you to step aside so that I can get through this street here so I can get to work. Otherwise, I can't get to work. They are yelling and screaming at her that ICE is taking children off the streets, which is a lie. That ICE is going around rounding up the parents of illegal immigrants or of illegal aliens, which is another lie. And claiming, don't you know what ICE is doing? Parents are being abducted. Children are being abducted. How dare you talk to us about going to work? Going to work has nothing to do with this. Listen now to these two low-life protesters, these two woke white liberals stopping a black mother from getting to work. Roll cut 1, Mike.
I know, and these people are having their children taken. But what about my kids? Today, that's what happens to my kids. I can't help it. But you can if you could just move off the land. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do you as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
Okay, so I don't know if it's kind of hard because there's so much noise in the background to everything, but so she's saying, look, you're talking about the children of illegals. Well, what about my kids? That's what this poor black woman is telling them. But what about my kids? Don't you care for my kids? I mean, I got to get to work. If I don't get to work, I lose my job. I can't feed my kids. I got to put food on the table. And the white woman, if you can believe this, says, well, we can't help you with that. That's not our problem. We can't help you with that. And then that clown in the man bun goes, oh, work. Don't talk to me about work. Don't talk to me about that. Now, the woman that you hear asking them is from Turning Points USA. She's a blogger. And she's asking them, hey, you're preventing this poor black woman, this mother, from getting to work. Doesn't that bother you? Oh, work. Entitled. Look at how entitled, self-important these two losers are. Lazy. You can tell, they don't have a job. They don't got to get to work. They're probably paid agitators. They're probably paid activists. So, they go to a couple of protests and live on welfare and, a la Bill in Sudbury. I'm telling you, that's what they do. Collect a couple of welfare checks, live off public housing, and then do a little bit of this organizing and protesting at the 20, 25, 30 bucks an hour. And, what the hell? Sure, what the hell with you? Blank you. I want you to listen now to the follow-up. This is the blogger of Turning Points USA. And she's saying they're stopping people from going to work. And they're literally laughing about it to their face. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
People have gotten out of their vehicles now to confront these protesters right here because they can't get to work. You have a mom who got out of her vehicle to try to get out and ask not to move, and they've all stated that they don't need to move and that these people have the final say over these people going to work. Now, I have this woman right here who's in a face mask, clearly very diseased, actually there's blocks and blocks in vehicles. So apparently I'm causing problems because I'm asking all of these white people who think it's okay to stop people from going to work, I'm asking them why they think that's okay. So anyway, this is what's going on in the streets of New York today. I'm here to do a service to the world by telling this woman to go on a diet because nobody needs to see that. Also, take your mask off unless you're diseased, that's pretty gross. And also, y'all need to let these people go to work. That's really unfair. That is really, really unfair.
I'm sorry. Look, I'm with the blogger all the way. Please, don't get me wrong. And she's a brave woman. She's going out there. It's possibility of violence. So please, I don't want you to think I'm criticizing her because it's the last thing. But she's saying this is really unfair. This is really unfair. Well, yeah, but it's almost like, how do I say this? But it's so much worse than that. Look, a peaceful protest to me is you get a permit to go to a park or go and say in front of City Hall or whatever you want to make your point. And that's a peaceful protest. A peaceful protest, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself. I've been saying this for years, is not marching on the streets, blocking traffic, and literally preventing people from getting to go to work. God forbid, what if there was an ambulance there and someone needed to get to the hospital? They can't move because traffic is completely blocked and congested. You don't just have the right to take over an entire boulevard or an entire street or entire blocks and just walk and wave your stupid Mexican flags. Now the Palestinian flag as well. Because, you don't like the fact that ICE is conducting raids and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris lost the election. And so it's unfair. It's unfair. No, it's illegal. It's unlawful. Arrest every single one of them. So I want you to look at it from this poor black mother's perspective and all the others that are waiting in their cars. None of them got to work that day, by the way. So I got to bust my ass, get up at 4:35 in the morning, get my kids ready to go on to school, put them on a school bus, make a lunch. I got to hustle through traffic, New York traffic, to work my rear end off all day and then scoop up the kids and then make dinner. In other words, this poor woman is, breaking her back to feed her children, put food on the table, and raise her kids. And I now got to battle these protesters just to get to work? These privileged, elitist, white, woke, liberal losers? These are the protests. This is liberalism. This is the Democratic Party. 618 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, I want to ask all of you, okay? They did this on social media, and there was just incredible, powerful reaction to this viral video of, it wasn't just her. There were so many commuters, people going to work. This was in New York, where they were literally they were blocked. They couldn't move because there were thousands and thousands of these anti-ICE protesters, bums, honestly, losers, paid agitators, and they were just blocking blocking traffic, blocking the streets, blocking the boulevards, and so they couldn't move. They couldn't get to work. And so this young black mother gets out of her car, and she, again, very polite, very respectful. She's not looking for any trouble whatsoever. She's pleading with them, saying, they're going on about, the children. ICE is abducting kids. No, they're not. And she just says, but what about my kids? I got to feed them. I can't get to work. If I don't get to work, at a minimum, I don't get paid. And I may even lose my job. Like, do you understand? I got to feed my kids. What about my children? And their answer to them, these are two white liberals, a woman and a guy in a man bun, this loser. And they're like, work. Like, like you're worried about work? We're worried about the big issues. We're worried about saving our democracy. And the white liberal, the rabid white liberal woman is like, well, we can't help you with that. We can't help you with that. By the way, these are the Bills in Sudbury who are, these pretentious, self-important, honestly ignorant idiots who will go on about Black Lives Matter. We're here to help uplift black people. That's what we do. You phonies, you frauds, you. And this poor woman is just saying, please, I just need you to stand aside so I can get through this street here, so I can get to my work. And, of course, they blocked her and they blocked everybody. Nobody got to work that day. Now, what some people did on social media was, if you were there and you confronted these two, Marxist, socialist, anarchist losers, what would you say to them? Honestly, what would be your response? You're sitting there for traffic, hours. You're going to be late for work. You got bills to pay. You've got children to feed. You're exhausted as it is. You work hard all day. They won't even let you get to work, so you can actually pay the taxes that pay for all these illegals. If you were able to confront them, what would you say to them? And let me throw another log on the fire. 617-266-6868 is the number. They're arresting only those that are torching cars or looting businesses or smashing windows or throwing projectiles, rocks, pieces of cement, bricks at police or National Guard troops. But they're not arresting this, which is these mobs who just literally take over the streets, or they block highways, or they set up barricades on boulevards, which prevents people from being able to get to work. By the way, I got a text from Rick saying apparently a fire truck had to be desperately diverted. They couldn't get through the traffic to douse a burning fire in a building. Now, thank the Lord, an ambulance didn't need to get through there because somebody would have died. To me, this is an unlawful assembly. You don't have to, again, I'm looking around the room like, am I living in the Twilight Zone? You can't just take over a street. You can't just take over a boulevard or a highway and then literally, laugh in people's faces and say, ha, ha, work? We don't work. What the hell is work? This is so beneath us. Work? I'm sorry. To the politicians, in this case to Mayor Adams and to Governor Hochul up in New York, but it doesn't matter because they do it here in Boston, they do it in San Francisco, they do it in Chicago, they do it in LA, they do it everywhere. So wherever city you live in, whatever state you live in, think you're mayor, think you're governor. You work for us. We go to work to pay taxes that pays your freaking salary and all the social services that makes our country tick. Without us, this country's finished. Now, it is your job, to me, your responsibility. The least you can do is make sure that nobody is blocking us and impeding us and obstructing us from being able to get to our jobs. That's it. That's all we're asking for. Okay, no, don't fill the potholes. No, that's too much for you. Don't take out the gangbangers and the criminals. That's too much for you, okay? No. Continue to steal our money and line your pockets. Okay, it's too much. God forbid we should have honest, clean government. But, at a bare minimum, can you say, the peasants do have to get to the field if we're going to harvest this crop. If we're going to eat, they got to get there. So how about, let guys know, clear out. Take over a park, go in front of City Hall, go someplace. But no, you can't take over the streets and block traffic and block highways and set up barricades. And no, our peasants need to get to their jobs to pay the taxes that funds everything. They can't even do that. What would you tell them? Honestly, no bravado. No, really. This is your chance. You have these two losers. And they're blocking you. You're sitting in traffic. It's been hours. Morning commute. It's now 10:30 in the morning. You've been there for 2.5 hours. Your boss is calling you. When are you going to come into work? And you're like, well, there's a protest. They're blocking everything. I don't care. You got to get to work. What would you tell them? This woman got out of her car, tried to appeal to their better nature, to their inner angels, if they have any, to their better angels, and said, look, please, I have kids too. I need to feed them. Please. I'm nothing against you. I'm not trying to stop you. I just need you to get out of the way so I can please drive. Move on, get by this blockade here, this barricade that you guys have set up, so I can go I can go work. And they laughed in her face. And the sad thing is, I don't think the boss is going to give her a break. At a minimum, she lost a day's salary. She's lucky. If that's all it is, she may even have lost her job. So my question to you, what should that poor black mother have done? What should the other commuters have done? And if you were there, honestly, what would you do? Your calls next.
I know, and these people are having their children taken. But what about my kids? Today, No, we can't. We're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do you all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
Oh, no, work. Oh, I care so much. That's Mr. Man Bun, by the way. That's one of the two anti-ICE I call them losers, but anyway, anti-ICE protesters who were blocking so much traffic that many of the commuters couldn't get to work, and this poor black young mother, Mike, what would you say, 28, 29 years old? She doesn't look more than 30. And, and pleading, she's got a couple young kids, pleading, saying, please, how is this peaceful? You're preventing me from getting to work. Please, just let us go. And they were literally laughing in her face. 6:35 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, very, very quickly. Lot of reaction on Messenger, and this is from Marianne in Florida. Good morning, Jeff. Well, good morning to you. But peaceful protests, Jeff. Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris said so. That mother who is trying to get to work should have responded that if she doesn't get there, she loses her job, which means less tax money to keep supporting their illegal asses. The ones that cause the problems are the ones that are protesting the loudest. And it's very hypocritical. And you know what the sad thing is? And this is a really interesting point. Even knowing what happened to her, especially in places like New York City, like California, her boss probably supports this in those liberal strongholds and would still fire her. We're living in very sad, very scary times. Look, I don't know. We're speculating what the boss believes or doesn't believe. I would not be shocked if that, the boss would be like, yeah, stick it to Trump. Ah, I hate ICE. Fascists. Leave our illegals alone. I almost guarantee it. But he's still going to dock her a day's pay if she's lucky, or, well, I'm sorry, you didn't come to work, you're out. 617-266-6868. This is from Larry on Messenger. Jeff, protesters winning hearts and minds of everyday workers. By the way, now you know why. You either laugh or you cry, but you look at all those people sitting in traffic. Those are all workers. Middle, working class, hardworking, decent people. You think they like these protests? You think they love the fact that the Democratic Party is supporting them and embracing them? That's just going to drive even more workers and middle class people into the Republican Party and into Donald Trump's camp. So, in a way, keep going. You want to lose the entire working class? Keep going. Keep protesting. Keep blocking traffic. This is from Mark on Messenger, and as usual, he's on fire. Jeff, I hate to say it, but if it were me that they were blocking, I would say okay. I would ask them nicely numerous times. But now, you got to leave. But after a while, you would leave me no choice. So if you're not going to let me go through, now you're doing it at your own risk. And then, Jeff, you can guess what's going to happen next. And then I would mostly likely get arrested instead. And I think, frankly, Mark, many people agree with you. I think they look at that, that young black woman, that young black mother and say, I don't have your patience. I don't think I would be as calm and collected and polite as you. I think a lot of people would blow their top sitting in traffic for hours trying to get to work. Your supervisor or superior or whatever is, texting and calling and saying, where the hell are you? And I think a lot of people would have gotten out of their car and it could have gotten violent very easily. And you know what? You would be arrested. Not these rioters and protesters and insurrectionists. No, 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 no. You, the poor working class stiff. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Dave in Pennsylvania, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent. How are you, Dave?
Good morning. How you doing, buddy?
I'm just happy I'm not in New York stuck in traffic for hours, Dave.
Well, Jeff, these, when my brother Double Dog Leathernecks are going to be let loose on L.A. and New York or wherever, I mean, the National Guard's all good and well, but when you let loose the Teufelhoundin in German, Jeff, and I know you know you're German, Double Dog, Hounds of Hell, Marines, we're not going to play cutesy time like Dan Bongino used to say. We're going to be in there, and we're going to knock these heads. We're going to grab these little balls, Jeff, and we're going to start slamming some heads, buddy.
Well, Dave, my understanding is that the Marines are just there to protect the federal buildings and to reinforce the National Guard if things get really, really ugly. But, Dave, I don't know, man. This Saturday, it could get ugly, and they may have to actually really deploy. I mean, the Marines are already deployed. They're on the streets, but they could actually see some action. It may come to that, Dave, because, I mean, the way they're talking about Saturday, June 14th, and the way the left is hyping up this so-called No Kings protest, L.A. could blow. Other cities could blow as well, but L.A. could really blow, and they may have to activate the Marines. I don't mean protecting just federal buildings. I mean talking about what you're talking about. Just putting them on the streets and dealing with crowd control. Dave, I got to ask you, you're sitting in traffic. This was you. Honestly, what would you do?
Jeff, I would have to get out of there and start removing people so I can get my butt to work and, pay my share of the taxes that, of course, the Democrats love to take. Jeff, everybody talks a good game, but when you wear a tattoo on your shoulder that says USMC, you take American pride in that. Not Pride Month, like these morons in the LGBTQ, ABCDEFG crap. I mean, they want to be like that. That's their business, buddy. But God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, Jeff.
Dave, as always, thank you so much for that call, my friend. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Lou?
Good. Look, let me just say this. These are people, and now they're finally being exposed for who they are. Now, this thing with the No Kings, it's all being sponsored by this Walton woman, right?
Yeah. Christy Walton. She's the heiress of the Walmart fortune.
Right. The funny thing is if you've got these left-wing rich oligarchs talking about no kings. I mean, she's like an oligarch princess talking about no kings. Now, the thing that's important to know is this is a golden opportunity. They are finally.
Oh, Lou, I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. Lou says this is a golden opportunity. Talk about a cliffhanger. Huh? We're going to come right back to Lou, have him finish his point. What is this golden opportunity? A lot more. Don't touch that dial. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, anti-ICE protests are now spreading. It's going to get worse and worse as we get closer to Saturday, just 2 days from today. The so-called No Kings protest, which is going to be launched all over the entire country. It is completely being funded by the radical left, and I'm going to give you a breakdown of this later in the show. A clip is now going viral. It has really caught the imagination of tens of millions of Americans, and it is their frustration now with what is happening with these anti-ICE so-called protests. This insurrection, that's what it really is. All across the country, a young black mother trying to get to work, this was in New York City, was waiting in traffic literally for hours as these anti-ICE activists just poured out onto the streets. They blocked traffic. They took over boulevards. major roads. Traffic was grinded to an absolute halt, pure gridlock. And so this poor black mother gets out of her car, confronts two white liberal protesters, and says, I've got to get to work. I'm going to lose my job. I've got to feed my kids. And they laugh in her face, mocking her, literally mocking her. My question to you, number one, double-barreled question, and I want to go back to Lou in Rhode Island. Number one, if you were there, honestly, what would you do? If you had a chance to speak to these two protesters, what would you say to them? Would you have behaved the way the black mother did? Would you have behaved differently? And the second question, is it time to arrest all of these protesters if they continue to block roads, traffic, highways, boulevards? Ultimately, do the streets belong to them or to the taxpayers who are just desperately trying to get to work? My argument, and you know where I stand, you block traffic, arrest them on the spot. I don't care if it's thousands of arrests, arrest every single one of them. They don't have the right to block traffic. They don't have the right to forcibly prevent people from getting to work. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Lou in Rhode Island, you were making an excellent point. This is now a golden opportunity. Please pick up where you left off.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, Lou, they're messing around with us again. You sound like you're in the Himalayas. You almost sound like you're being held hostage and in the Himalayas. Let's see if we can reset and reconnect. Lou, are you a human being, Lou? Do you sound normal now?
I'm back from.
Yes.
I'm back from Nepal now. I'm back from the Himalayas. All right. Anyway, before I get to my point, let's get a taste of reality. If it weren't for any of these no ID vote states like California, Trump would have won by millions. I mean, more than the majority that he got. Millions. If it was only citizens voting. Let's get that into perspective, because the Democrats and all these people are just nothing but a bunch of phonies. And it's a golden opportunity to expose them for who they are. Now's the time. If Caroline Leavitt in her next press conference should show that video before she says that one thing, which shows that they don't care about people. They're just like the jihadists. I mean, first they came for the Jews, now they're coming for a poor black woman who wants to go to work. They don't care about people. They hate people. They hate the American citizen. That's the whole point, and we can expose them for who they are, like Van Hollen with Garcia. Kilmar Garcia is their new poster boy. It used to be Rosa Parks. Now it's Kilmar Garcia, and the people, and there's no video of anybody in ICE trying to take a baby away from somebody. You know who they're arresting? They're arresting criminals. The Democrats want to protect criminals. And now we have these sponsors who are sponsoring them. We are exposing them for who they are. This is a golden opportunity for Cash and Pam to start going after the roots of this whole problem. The sponsors, and talking about these two people on the bridge, you got their pictures. They're not behind masks, are they? And they start doxing people. They can dox them. And not only can they dox them, they can sue them and arrest them and search their phones, their computers, and everything else, and get to who's behind them. And it's this whole alliance of these jihadists from overseas, these Ivy League colleges, the media, and the Democratic Party, and these sponsors all need to be crushed right now. I think it's the Democrats' battle of the bulge. They're trying to do one big push, and then we got to push them all back and just expose them for exactly who they are, and just start naming names and searching them and and start stopping the sponsors and going to the root of the problem instead of messing around trying to be nice. We just got to go right after them right now. Full force and full media and full everything. And by the way, Jeff, I don't know why you don't have a podcast by now, but that's besides the point. I hope you're working on one. What do you think?
Well, Lou, let me ask you, do they have a right? Because this is what all these mayors and governors have concluded, that they are making a lot of arrests in LA, but those are people who are throwing Molotov cocktails, cement blocks, rocks, fireworks, whatever, assaulting police officers. But people like these two, Mr. Man Bun and the raging feminists there, these two white liberals, people who are blocking traffic, blocking highways, literally impeding people, preventing people from getting to work. Just, all of them. They just go onto the streets, thousands of them. And they wave their flags, their Mexican flags, increasingly now the Guatemalan flag. Anyway, I guess so Guatemala's getting in on the action. And so and people are like, they can't get to work. And I don't mean it's a 15-minute delay or a half an hour. Hours and hours and hours and hours. In New York, they were sitting in traffic for over 3 hours until that woman got out of the car. And she wasn't able to get to work. So should they be allowed to occupy the streets and prevent law-abiding, tax-paying, working middle-class people from getting to work? To me, arrest every single one of them. Lou, am I wrong?
We start with a few real big mass arrests of these people on the bridges. Just round them up, put them in the vans, take them to get arraigned. That's what you have to do. You just have to start arresting them and charging them. And then that's going to stop a lot of it because I don't think they want to go to jail. And not only that, but it's also a golden opportunity to find out who they are, who's sponsoring them, where they come from, and what they're doing there. And that's what they have to do, mass arrest of these people. Clear off those bridges if they need to, and this is where I think some of these weak governors come in. I mean, we ought to insist that these governors ask for the National Guard to come and clear off the bridges. I mean, you got these people now they're exposed. I mean, the people on their side are like AOCs, the Mayor Woos, the Governor, Haley's, and all these people. They all support these radicals, and in a sense they support all the criminals that they're trying to protect. I mean, they're all over there, and I think the FBI ought to be on the bridges. I think we ought to get people on the bridges to start.
Oh, I love it. No, Lou, I love it. Listen, Lou, honestly, Trump, I'm telling you, I know Trump's people are listening, and Greg Abbott has now preemptively called out the National Guard, and he's going to deploy them all across Texas. I like your idea. Not just preemptively deploy them for Saturday, June 14th, the so-called No Kings protest. No, deploy them now and clean them off the bridges, clean them off the highways, clean them off these boulevards. In other words, if you're going to block traffic and prevent people from getting where they need to go, and by the way, I'm not just talking about work. Here, Rick, who I really value, said, no, Jeff, big story up in New York. Fire truck couldn't get to a fire. Fire truck couldn't get to a fire. Now, I haven't heard any reports about an ambulance not being able to get to the hospital. But, my God, what if somebody had a heart attack or, I don't know, was shot or needs to get to the hospital ASAP? They can't. They're blocked sitting in traffic. They're playing with our lives. This is a threat to public safety. So I'm with you all the way, Lou. Call in the National Guard in every major city where this is taking place, every state, I don't care where it's taking place, a mass arrest and clean them out. Lou, outstanding call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quick. Again, best audience in the business. Jeff. How many times are you going to keep saying it, man? You sound like a broken record. It's true. I don't know what else to tell you. So listen now to this. You can text the Kuhner man, 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, it is worth noting that while, quote unquote, Mr. Man Bun was mocking that young lady about having to get to work, because he's a hired agitator, he himself is presently at work, even if it's only a Democrat-funded temporary position. Now, that's a very good point. He goes, Jeff, my second point. During the Summer of Love, 2020, the riots with BLM and Antifa, it was my suspicion that not only were the rioters being paid, but they were probably funneling drugs to these people as an incentive. Think about it. These rioters are able to go all day, all night without ceasing. And most of them look like they come straight out of a drug culture. Try telling me they weren't and aren't supplying a steady stream of meth to these losers to keep them going. You know, that's a brilliant point. And look, sometimes audio just doesn't do justice to something. So I'm trying to describe to you these two white protesters. I'm telling you, they both do look on drugs. They look like they're on drugs. Especially Mr. Man Bun. You know, he's a bit taller. He's a bit slim with his little man bun. The guy that's work? Oh, I so care. Oh, I care. You're going to miss work. Work? Oh. And he's mocking her to her face. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, all day, all night? That's all these people do. Up and down, up and down, up and down, waving a Mexican flag or a sign that says F ICE or Death to America or whatever. All day, all night. Now, I know they're paid by the hour, so the more they protest, the more they make. But I agree. I mean, who can do this all day, all night? Now, what we do know, and I'm going to get to this again in more detail later in the show, but they are being given water. They're being given food. They're being given these bionic shield face masks in case there's tear gas or other chemical agents used by the police or the National Guard. Bricks, rocks, cinder blocks are being strategically placed now, not just in L.A., they're finding them now in over 15 major cities in preparation for what's going to happen Saturday, June 14th. Literature, a lot of pamphlets, and where they give them exact instructions. So, no, this is well-funded, well-coordinated, well-planned. There's no question. And so are they pumping them with drugs as well? They look like, many of them honestly do look like they're on drugs. 617-266-6868. Mel in Saratoga, New York. Thanks for holding, Mel, and welcome.
Hey, yes, good morning, Jeff. Thank you
Hi,
for
Mel.
taking my call here. Yeah, that soy boy with the bee bun, and I think you know what I mean. That ain't no man bun. Ain't no real man gonna be wearing that crap. Let me tell you. You know, Jeff, I spent a lot of my summers down in Brooklyn, over in Bensonhurst, Bath Beach, in the Gambino area. That's when I seen all the big hot shots that were in the mafioso in that neighborhood. You know, we played black kids, Italian kids. We all played out there, handball, stickball, every kind of ball in the afternoon, in the morning, and in the evening. You know, and 4th of July came around. You had the best fireworks around instead of this little crap that they're selling today. But my uncle drove dump truck, cement truck, but B Terra Camo, which had their construction yard and their freight yard and all that right down near Coney Island, New York. And them guys who were driving that kind of equipment would have made quick work of those people like that. Those little Democrat liberals. They wouldn't have stood a chance. Now, I learned a lesson from that. If I was there and I saw what was going on, Jeff, the same thing would have happened. Quick work would have been made of those two and whoever else. But that's just what, you know, you look today, everybody just wants to sit there and be quiet with their phone out, filming this, filming that, get up off your backside and make an example. You know, we're not taking this stuff anymore. But that's just what you got to deal with today. But myself, if I was there, you're going to insult this woman, especially with children around. I hate to see, you know, to imprint what these children may have to witness about somebody getting their backside whipped. But that's exactly what has to happen with this crew.
You know, now, Mel, listen, Mel, look, really, I hear you. I really do. I hear you. But, you know, we don't have to even go that far. You know, where's the police? And I'm really blaming the mayor now. Look, they're complaining. They're calling 911. There's thousands and thousands and thousands. And they're like, look, we're stuck. We can't get to work. We're sitting here. It's been 2.5 hours. These guys, they're not you can't send a couple of police officers down there and cordon that area off and say, no, you're going to walk on the sidewalk, but you're not walking on the streets. I don't care. Get lost. These people have to get to work. And this is what I mean, Mel. I see it in Boston periodically all the time. They'll block 93 or they'll block Highway 95, which are two major arteries, and they'll literally block the highway. I remember there was some protest. Sandy would know this, probably Mike, but this was maybe 6-7 years ago. I mean, the audience could help me on this, where these guys tied themselves to cement barrels. Okay, barrels full of cement, and they chained themselves, and they jumped out of the back of these trucks, and they literally blocked off 93, the whole damn thing, and blocked it for hours. And the mayor's, oh, la-di-da, the governor, la-di-da. Okay, we finally, after hours, sent in, 3-4 hours, we sent in the police and the fire, and we slowly removed them. And I'm like, first of all, you're preventing people from getting to work. You've shut the whole city down, essentially. What if there's a fire truck that needs to get through? What if there's an ambulance? What if there are paramedics that need to desperately get to somebody? And it's just this attitude, this, as you talk about it, this passivity, this complacency, where everybody just sits around and they're on their phones or they're filming and it's just, that's just life. That's just, hey. It's like, Mel, we're becoming used to and accepting, desensitized to anarchy, to chaos, to breakdown. Mel, I remember, I used to teach this to my students. You're exactly right. Check it up. Don't take my word for it. When Nixon was president, in New York, speaking of New York, it was in New York, these anti-Vietnam War hippies went on the streets and they blocked traffic. Same thing, very similar, protesting the war. And these hard hats, construction guys, were working on a construction project. And they said, hey, you're going to spit on the American flag. You're going to spit on our soldiers, and you're blocking traffic so people can't get to work. They literally jumped off their work site, and they beat up, I'm sorry to laugh, but they literally beat up these hippies right on the street. There's construction guys. There was one after another. Just boom, 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 boom. And they cleared them all out. And Nixon praised them. The country, we were like, yeah, like finally. The cops never arrested one single construction worker. And it was a huge cultural moment at the time. In other words, the working class had really turned against the anti-war protesters. But I mean, and they beat them up good. I mean, nobody died. But man, and I'll tell you this, from that point on, they never shut traffic in New York again. The hippies learned their lesson. Now, if somebody tried to do that today, hey, that was Occupy Wall Street. Yeah, that was Occupy Wall Street with the barrels on the 93, where they just shut just the 93 down. Okay, that was Occupy Wall Street. But anyway, let that go. If you tried that now, if people like you, Mel, or, construction guys or working class people said, you know what, bang, 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 get out of the way, knock a few heads. Okay, let's go, everybody. We're going to work. Let's go. No, these anti-ICE protesters aren't going to jail. The people assaulting them are going to go to jail. That the world has changed in 50 years, Mel, and honestly, not for the better. Final word to you, my friend.
Well, Jeff, today, the way things are, the Democrat base is becoming fed up with this so-called movement. And I don't think so. I think that today, when you got to do things and take things into your own hands, like I said, those construction workers, I think they get big respect in the courtroom today. I don't even think they'd even go to court. Even you take Eric Adams, he's kind of made a 180, on what he was thinking about all of what's been going on. He sees the writing on the wall. And with Bernie Carrick just passing away here, over the weekend or whichever it was, you know what? I don't think that there would be any problem with these guys, having to take and do what they need to do to bring law and order back to the city, because the cops they're afraid to do it. So who's going to do it? I don't think those construction workers are going to be in a lot of trouble. I think that they're the backbone of America. And I think that they would get some praise about having to go and do what they got to do. They pull this stuff in the wrong area, especially near a construction site, or even any blue collar or working individual. They're not going to get in trouble. Jeff.
Well, Mel, I can tell you this. I can just tell you this. If this happened, say these protesters were, smacked around a little bit, okay, by blue collar workers saying you're not going to prevent us from going to work, and they did try to indict and send to prison these blue collar workers. If I was in the jury, I would vote to acquit. Might say, okay, so what's the problem? They're blocking traffic. They got what they deserve. 7:18 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just so that everybody knows, there are more anti-ICE protests that broke out yesterday in other major cities. Now, Los Angeles itself, again, was bedlam last night. They clashed with police. They clashed with the National Guard. Tear gas had to be deployed. Flashbangs, stun grenades had to be deployed as well. Looting. There was a lot of looting again yesterday. So the situation has not been quelled. Protesters continue to just pour onto the streets. They are itching for a fight with LA police and, of course, with National Guard troops. Now, just very quickly, and I'm going to get to this in greater detail in the next segment. What you're starting to see now, it's been about 24 to 36 hours, is there are still many Mexican flags. Okay, they're flying and Guatemalan flags now, but the Mexican flag is the big symbol. But you're starting to see a much stronger pro-Hamas, Gaza, pro-Palestinian contingent and aspect to these protests, where many of them are wearing the keffiyeh, the Palestinian shawl. Many of them are literally wearing the headbands that Hamas uses. They're talking about Gaza and linking it, I swear to you, to ICE and the federal immigration law in the United States. So what you're starting to see now, and they're using the term intifada, which they did not use in the first couple days. And they're linking their support for Mexico, illegal aliens, and Gaza. And so you're starting to see now a lot of the protesters that were at Harvard, Columbia, they're now being circled back into these anti-ICE protests. So it's the same bunch of protesters. They're just moving them now from cause to cause to cause. So a lot of the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic protesters that were occupying campuses, college campuses, have now been activated in cities all across the country in solidarity now with these anti-ICE activists and terrorists, really, criminals, these insurrectionists in Los Angeles. And police are saying now the violence, the rhetoric of violence is not going down, it's going up. Sam on the South Shore. Thanks for holding, Sam, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Sam.
Oh, I think I have my radio on. I'm sorry about that. I'll turn that off. I don't know. I know you're not a lawyer, but I have a question regarding them stopping the traffic. When they stop people's freedom of movement, is that considered kidnapping?
It should be.
Yeah, so I think, the rhetoric and, they put up the rhetoric. I don't know. They tend to use words against us, and we try, like protesters. We made it rioters and looters. We should say, like, they're kidnappers, they're thieves. I don't know if there's words for assault and battery and what they really are, and not just protesters.
Well, no, but Sam, but really, look, think about it. Really, you're completely right. Look, think about it. You're sitting in your car. You're trying to get to work. Now, you can't move. You're stuck in traffic. Like, really, you can't move. And they're literally blocking every road. You can't, every road out. You can't go back. You can't go left. You can't go right. You can't go straight. You can't go anywhere. And you get out of your car and you say, look, please, whatever you got, I don't care what it is. I got to go shopping. I got to go to work. I got to go to see my kid, whatever it is. And they're like, no, we're not letting you. And they laugh in your face. I mean, okay, technically you're not kidnapped. You can walk out of your car and walk to wherever you need to go. But then what's going to happen to your car? You can't just leave your car in the middle of the street, unoccupied. So, in a sense, it is kidnapping, of course. They're preventing you from getting to where you need to go. And it's not, okay, an accident is an accident. That's something else. But it's not because there's an accident and a pileup and, hey, we're trying to, rescue people and, take the cars out and clear the road. No, it's willful, political, by people who are deliberately trying to take over the streets. To me, it's terrorism. It's terrorism, it's insurrection, and I agree with you, it's attempted kidnapping. And then, and Sam, look, you lose your job because of this. Where's that black woman going to go? Or let's say it was you. Where were you going to go? You can't sue these protesters. So they've cost you your living, your livelihood, or at a minimum, a day's pay. And they're not paying for it. So who pays for it? You. Well, what did you do? But you're just a person trying to get to work paying taxes. So what I'm saying is this is so wrong on so many levels. And I'm with you. They've got to throw the book at him, charge him, and put him in jail. Enough is enough. 7:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470. 70470. And of course, you can always email the Kuhner Man or message me on Messenger. But anyway, so, okay, getting a lot of feedback. I want to read something that I got from, Beverly on Messenger. Because I think she makes an interesting point and I want to clarify it to the audience. And so Beverly, wrote to me maybe 8 minutes ago saying, Jeff, please stop referring to her as a black woman. Just refer to her as a woman. I love your show, but sometimes you got to change your wording a little bit. Now, I hear where Beverly's coming from. And so I messaged her back, and this is what I wrote to her. Beverly, I agree with you. And normally I don't like referring to anyone's race. I rarely do it. The only reason why I'm doing it today is because the left and the Dems always play the race card, and they try to paint us as racists. But I'll stop on your recommendation. If it's grating many of you, that's not my intention, obviously. Look, to me, and I've said this for my whole life, really, but on the air now, over 10 years, in fact, 13 years now. To me, skin color is like hair color, eye color. You have blonde hair, red hair, black hair, brown hair. To me, it's completely irrelevant to a person. The Dems always play the race card. I think it's disgusting. And so to me, why this story is popping and why so many people are disgusted is that here you have these white liberals. Again, I'm sorry to keep emphasizing the race, but these privileged, entitled, self-important, narcissistic white liberals who are lecturing a poor black mother how her going to work is not important. That somehow they know better than she does and she should just stand there and suck it up. And how demeaning and insulting and condescending they are to this woman who all she's trying to do is feed her family. And it shows the lie at the heart of the lie at the heart of liberal ideology. They don't care about minorities. They've never cared about minorities. Look at how cavalierly they mock her about having to go to work. Work? Oh, like I care. And she says, but I got to feed my kids. And the woman goes, well, I don't care. That's not I can't help you with that. You phonies, you frauds, you. So honestly, that's the only reason why I keep emphasizing the race of this woman, is because it shows to you, again, they never cared about black people. They don't care about minorities. They use them. They exploit them. They whip them up into a frenzy. It's always Mississippi burning. It's always Jim Crow's around the corner. It's always Trump's going to put you all in chains. Always with the hysteria, the fear mongering, the race baiting. It's disgusting. But now you see their real colors. It's about Marxism, communism, and really in some ways anarchism. They want, like in a third world banana republic, they want anarchy and chaos. They love anarchy and chaos. Now, to show you how radical this movement is now getting, okay, as if it wasn't bad enough, listen now to this. Everyone knows Ilhan Omar, okay? Some people did something. This fraud from Somalia, who is one of the most anti-Semitic, anti-white, frankly, far left-wing members of Congress. In fact, I don't think you can get more left-wing than her. Well, her daughter now, who is a professional activist herself, who was part of the whole Columbia University, the movement at Columbia against Jews and against Israel over Hamas and Gaza. In fact, she got suspended. She got kicked out of school because she was participating in these pro-Hamas encampments at Barnard College, which is tied to Columbia. Well, her name is Isra Hersey. She now has come out on a viral Instagram post, not just praising anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles, but this is what she and other protesters are now doing. They're trying to link ICE and immigration enforcement here in the United States with what's happening in Gaza. And what they're now claiming, this is how radical it's getting, that Israel and the United States are both colonial powers. Essentially, they're part of one larger colonial empire that needs to be violently dismantled, utterly overthrown. And so she's now, listen to this, she's now gone on Instagram, and this is what she wrote. From LA to Rafah, there is one common oppressor. Death to the colonial empire. Life for our children. Death to America. Death to Israel. This woman is literally calling for Americans to be killed and for America to be overthrown in a violent Marxist revolution. And she goes on to say that ICE and Israel, so in other words, enforcing our immigration laws and deporting illegal aliens, are part of the same colonial oppressor system. And she is literally now glorifying violence, saying the only way to overthrow these empires is to take it to the streets and to engage in violent activities and the violent overthrow of both countries and both governments. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. Now, on top of that, and she's saying it's time for an American intifada. Okay, that's what Ilhan Omar, by the way, Ilhan Omar came out and said she's so proud of her daughter. So proud of her daughter. Well, like mother, like daughter. She's just a chip off the old block. So, one of the leaders of that protest, these protests now, anti-ICE protests in New York, is a woman. You can see her. She's leading the chants. She's wearing the headband of the Hamas military wing on her forehead. She's got the keffiyeh and she's got the Hamas military headband. And here is what she's chanting. From Mexico to Gaza, globalize the intifada. From Palestine to Mexico, all walls have got to go. And the crowd keeps chanting it over and over and over again. And now you're starting to see many more Palestinian flags, many more people, men and women, dressed in keffiyehs. In fact, listen, this is sound of anti-ICE protesters, not in New York, but this is in D.C. I'm going to play it on the other side. Okay, Mike says I've got less than 30 seconds. But they're chanting very similar to what they're chanting in New York. From Palestine to Mexico, the border wall has got to go. Globalize the intifada. They're now openly calling, not just for violence, but for the revolutionary overthrow of the United States and the American government. If this is not an insurrection, I don't know what is. 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so you've got now Ilhan Omar's daughter getting into it, calling for literally the violent overthrow of the entire American government. She's saying more violence, the better, more blood, the better. You've got now people, pro-Hamas supporters. They're now circulating them in with these other anti-ICE activists. Listen to them. This is in D.C. They were chanting this in New York as well. This is in D.C. And again, these are people wearing the keffiyeh, the Palestinian shawl. The one in New York literally had a Hamas headband. This one is just the keffiyeh. But it's the same. Notice, in all these cities, same outfits, same slogans, same chants. You would think it looks like this is coordinated. Roll cut 10. Mike.
From Palestine to Mexico. From Palestine to Mexico. From Palestine to Mexico.
Yep. Yep. There you go. There you go. Now, and the rhetoric even now among political leaders, if you can imagine, is getting even more reckless, more dangerous, more incendiary. I want you to listen now. This is the deputy mayor of Ventura, California, Doug Halter. The man is a left-wing lunatic. I'm telling you, he's nutty as a fruitcake. So, because Trump is decided to send in ICE into LA and into California to arrest, again, violent criminal with convictions. These are all convicted criminals, illegal aliens. Listen now to what he's saying. Roll cut 12. Mike.
This is absolutely unconscionable, what's going on. I have never thought in my life that I would be seeing this sort of disruption and this sort of terrorism attack on our citizens, on our community, on our residents, our friends, our family, our neighbors, our workers, our employers. Everything that impacts one part of our community impacts all of us. And to see this coming from our own country, the country that I was raised by my Italian grandparents to love and be so proud of, and to see this happen, it's just unconscionable. This has got to stop. We've been asking for comprehensive immigration reform for at least 30 years. Now, if he really wants to be a hero, get on it and get it done. And leave our people alone, because we will fight and we defend them. They're part of our community. They will always be a part of our community.
Look at them. Just listen to their own words. Our people? So criminal, illegal aliens are our people. And again, I'm not even talking about the day laborer at Home Depot. Okay, the illegal alien day laborer or some mother with a child or whatever. I'm talking about convicted murderers, convicted child molesters. If you want, I can give you the rap sheets on all of these people that they're targeting in California, not just around the country, in California specifically. Convicted rapists, convicted child molesters, drug dealers, MS-13 gangbangers, murderers. And this guy, those are our people. Don't you touch them. My Italian grandparents would be rolling in their grave. Yeah, I think they are, but at you, not at Trump. Because the Italians that came here were legal immigrants. Okay, they hated terrorists and criminals like this that you're defending. But notice now, to deport illegal aliens, that's terrorism. It's terrorism. Sending in ICE, that's now terrorism. So what he's saying is the Trump administration is a terrorist state. Now, what do you think? What's the consequence of this? You're just pouring kerosene on the fire, my friend. If you're a Bill in Sudbury, if you're this gullible Democrat, you're going to take it to the streets. The president's a terrorist. He's unleashing terrorism on the people of California and on the people of the United States. And notice what he said. He goes, we've been asking for comprehensive immigration reform for 30 years, i.e. amnesty for all illegals. That's what it means. Amnesty for all illegals. Who won the election, buddy? Kamala Harris campaigned on comprehensive immigration reform. She campaigned on amnesty. She got her butt kicked. Trump campaigned on no amnesty. He was going to deport the illegals out of the United States. It was the central pledge of his entire campaign. So what he's saying is, to hell with the election. I don't care about the election results. It's our way or the highway. So either you continue to allow us to import unlimited numbers of third world illegal foreigners and criminals into the United States and essentially erase our southern border, or we're just going to continue to violently riot. As he put it, we're going to fight for them. We're going to defend them. And you're asking why there's violence right now in city after city? And why these anti-ICE protests are getting more militant and more dangerous and more violent almost by the second? Because Democrat politicians are the ones now who are inflaming the situation. They're the ones inciting this. 617-266-6868. George in Berkeley. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, George.
Happy to be on your show finally. So you had a caller on earlier, and I just wanted to point out, I think he was pretty far off the mark, and I know you were agreeing with him. This had to do with when you cited Richard Nixon's praise of those construction workers back in the 60s or probably early 70s.
Early 70s. That was early 70s.
Yeah. I'll tell you, these days we're never going to see anything like that. First of all, today's construction workers, these union guys, especially in the city of Boston, they support Mayor Wu. They support the governor. I was driving down the highway trying to get into Boston yesterday, and I see the big International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers sign they have over there with a big picture of Wu's face on it. We support her 100%. And I've seen Healy's face on there, too. The construction workers of old are gone. None of them are going to do anything. None of them would do anything because they support these people, because they support the unions with the contracts. They're rank and file guys. Now, there's some people in the shadows that are probably afraid to speak up. For the most part, though, they're concerned with their own financial welfare, which I can't blame them. But they're not doing anything. Those days are long gone. And you can see, too, an example with COVID. These guys were lining up in droves to get vaccinated. They were fully supportive of that whole debacle. None of those guys are coming back. Now, maybe in Europe, you'll see videos on YouTube where you got guys jumping out of cars and dragging these idiots by the hair, across the road and toss them off to the side to get out of their way or move them out of their way. You're not going to see that, especially in Massachusetts. And the police departments aren't any better, to be frank. I support the police. I support unions. My dad was in a union, but my dad, I'm 60. My dad, he would get out of his car if anybody blocked his way. And I'm not exaggerating. And he would grab them by the neck and toss them to the side with no questions asked. Now, he probably would have been drunk while he was doing it. But the point is, these guys don't exist. The testosterone's low. And furthermore, look at any construction site. There's some of the wokest aspects of society right now. DEI is rampant on these construction sites. They're not doing anything. Those old days aren't coming back. I wish they were, and I think the old timer that was pining for them means well, but it's not happening, Jeff.
Well, George, I got to ask you, and by the way, I see that same billboard. I know exactly the one that you're talking about on 93. I see it all the time. As I head back home after my show is over, there it is. And you're right. It's either Michelle Wu or Healy. Anyway, so you're completely right, George. George, I want to ask you this, because this is the part that I don't get. A lot of these illegals, not all, but many of them, do construction jobs on the black market, at Home Depot, whatever. They were at landscaping, whatever, even on construction sites. And they work for less pay. So they're stealing the jobs of these construction workers, of American citizens, or they're driving down their wages. So you would think that the unions would say, out of our own self-interest, we'd be against illegal immigration. We'd be supporting all of these ICE raids and deportations. Now, George, why is it that they aren't opposing these illegals, even though it's stealing their jobs and driving down their wages? What's your theory?
I'm actually an attorney. I represent a lot of construction workers. I represent a lot of, I've represented people that are illegal in the country. Not in immigration or anything, but if they were injured or if they going for a divorce or something like that. So I have a good, I think, finger on the pulse of these things. First of all, these construction workers, they're not concerned about these guys taking their jobs. These are real, as you said, black market. They're lower level construction work. It's and they're not union. It's not union. Unions, they're looking for the bigger chunk of things, the big government contracts, the big buildings in the city of Boston. They're not, I don't think they're worried about it, but I don't even think they get that far in the thought process, simply because I swear they're brainwashed. They follow the orders of the muscle and the unions. They're told what to do, and they do it because they need their pensions. They've worked hard for their pensions. They've worked hard for their annuities. They don't want to jeopardize any of that. And you know what? To be frank, they're going to work. They're nose to the grindstone. They're just trying to get through the day. But in reality, Jeff, their mindset of these workers has changed significantly. The DEI has really had an effect on them, but also, not to go off on a tangent, but everything that has to do with the conversion of people in transitioning. I think part of the goal was the more people they can trans, the more people they can change. You can take a conservative, and if a conservative has a child that's confused and has been fooled by the school system into transitioning, that parent, that construction worker loves that child, but suddenly now they're conflicted because they're not going to be fighting against it or even speaking against it because their loved one is now, was a boy and now they're a girl and vice versa. So their whole minds have been twisted up. They're just trying to get their money, get through the day, get to retirement, and probably just, go somewhere and get away from it. I don't fault them, but I can tell you, my son and I were having this conversation yesterday because I was trapped in traffic. I was on the phone with him and we're talking about it, and I see Wu's face. And, this stereotype of the burly construction worker is gone. You'll see a few of them, but it's gone. It doesn't exist. The independent thought is gone. It's been changed to what COVID vaccines is a good example. You didn't have any of those unions coming out fighting against that. The vast majority of people bowed their head and stuck out their arm and took it. There was no fighting. And there is
or France or, Norway, or really, you take your pick. They block traffic. They just, like the old days here. They just, grab them by the hair or grab them by the neck, or if they're lying on the ground and block, they just just yank them off the road. And you could see them cursing them and, you could, I don't know the language, but you could tell he's basically telling the guy to blank off, and they're just waving the cars through like, come on, let's go. So, George, really interesting call. George, thank you very much for that. So George says, no, the old construction workers, those days are gone. The testosterone is gone. They've been brainwashed by woke ideology, DEI, and they're more interested in their pensions than they are in protecting, wages or the United States or standing up against lawlessness and anarchy. Agree, disagree? Dave in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, I got a question. I'll put it like this. Your question, what would happen if we get confronted by that clown that was in New York?
Oh, my God. Finally, Dave, finally, somebody wants to answer the question. Go ahead, Dave.
Jeff, I would have told him to kiss my...
Dave, I want to read to you, and I'm not trying to set up a conflict or anything, but because I just want to be honest with everybody. So I asked Grace, she always texts me during the show. And so I texted her back and I said, hey, I'm just curious, like really honestly. I said, what would you do if you were that woman, you were trapped as well? What would you do? And here's what she responded, quote, calm. There is just no point. I would read the situation as hopeless to get through. In other words, and my wife's not a coward, I'm not far from it, but I'm just saying, like, what are you going to do? They've occupied the streets. The mayor won't stand up to them. The local law enforcement has been, essentially neutered. They won't stand up to them. So what am I going to do? Get out of the car? That's what I read you the answer, but I just don't know the way my wife thinks. So I'm going to get out of my car and then what? Have a clash, have an argument, have something maybe instigated, and then God knows I could end up in jail. So her point is, it's just not worth it. You just gotta, bite the bullet, sit in your car, and ride it out. Dave, you're saying you wouldn't do that. You would get out of your car and tell her basically, kiss my keister. You can, kiss it where the sun don't shine, correct?
Probably more than that would happen, Jeff, because let me tell you, everybody's talking about Saturday going on and they're going to be blocking this, blocking that. Jeff, you know my job title. You know I do a lot of medical transportation. And if I got somebody who's going to tell me I can't go, they better get out of the way, Jeff, because I'll tell you, I might be taking a ride tomorrow night after I get paid after Route 1 and pick up a couple toys. The non-lethal ones, but that will make a point. I got a job to do, Jeff. Who the hell are these freaking clowns? I'm going to go to jail, but they're not going to jail for blocking traffic and blocking people from doing their job? Jeff, I'll tell you, the only reason why that mother did not say nothing back to this guy the way she probably wanted to is because of her kids with her. I will guarantee you, Jeff, if that lady did not have her kids with her yesterday when this was going on, she would have given them some different words to say, technically and verbally, and probably even physically, Jeff, because she has to go to work. Who the hell is this clown? I hear that clown's mouth when you put the article on. Jeff, he sounds like a punk from freaking the ghetto. It's like, get out of my way.
He's a punk.
Run him over.
Oh, you're right, Dave. He's a punk. He really is. You're absolutely right. And, maybe if other people got out of their car, again, I'm not urging, start fisticuffs. But if everybody, F you, the middle finger, we're not putting it, in other words, at least shame them. She was the only one that had the guts to get out of her car and shaming them. And, and she was like, you could tell she was making great arguments. They're going, well, they're taking away the children, the illegal alien children. She goes, what about my kids? Well, I can't feed them? Like, my kids don't matter? And then she's like, how is this peaceful? You're preventing me from going to work. Don't tell me this is peaceful. So she was the only one that was at least trying to shame them. The rest, honestly, they were like sheeple. They're in their cars and they'll wait forever if it need be. And, eventually most of them ended up going home. Almost none of them, after a while, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in your car, what are you going to do? Go show up to work when the shift is over? And you're right, Dave. Look, I know you drive, ambulances or people to the hospital. You've got somebody that's got to go to a clinic or go to a hospital or has an emergency. Get out of the way, man. You're putting people's lives in danger. Dave, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Siding, Roofing, and Windows. Should blocking the road for a protest or a highway or a boulevard or whatever, should blocking traffic, okay, for a protest be a felony? I.e., should they be arrested on the spot and thrown in jail? A, yes. B, no. You know where I stand. I am a yes all the way, baby. All the way. Lock them up. All of them. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and I'm often very active on X, as you know. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHNER, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER. Maria in Ludlow. Thanks for holding, Maria, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning, Maria.
So, my answer to your question is a hard yes. Definitely a hard yes. So I have a few points. If these protesters, they are not just protesters. Let's call it what it is. Ilhan Omar's kid, Elon, all these people are domestic terrorists. All of these protesters all over the United States, they are domestic terrorists because they are breaking laws. They are putting people's lives in danger. This is not peaceful protesting in any way, shape, or form. Okay? All these mayors, these Congress people, these, Gavin.
Maria, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. I'm going to come right back to you, I promise. She's saying these are not protesters. These are terrorists. These are criminals. These are insurrectionists. Do you agree with Maria? Your calls next. 8:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go right back to Maria in Ludlow. Maria, you're on fire. You're saying, look, Jeff, these aren't protesters. These are thugs, terrorists, criminals, rioters, and they need to be treated as such. Please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I am so sick and tired of these lunatics, these hoodlums, these terrorists doing all this and getting away with it. They should be treated accordingly. Anybody that is okay with this, you are a domestic terrorist, and you should be arrested, and you should be, according to the law, with anything that you arrested and be that filed charges against you as a domestic terrorist, and you should pay for it. And these mayors, these anybody that is okay with this,
that is not for safety of the American people, you are a domestic terrorist. You are aiding and abetting domestic terrorism, and you should be arrested and be crucified whichever way. I am so against this, it's not even funny. I'm just letting you know, Jeff, that if it ever came to, I have a medical complex child, and if I ever, my son was at risk between life and death, and these buffoons decided to block the road for me bringing my child, or the ambulance my child is in, to go to the hospital, it would become a choice between my son's life and their life. Guess what? Speed bump. I would become like a Democrat. Do it now, deal with the consequences later, because they do whatever they want, they say whatever they want, and there is no consequences whatsoever. And if they say, well, they're peaceful protesting, you can't go after them legally, then you would go after the mayor. You would go after the people in charge for negligence, because they have the power to stop for not putting all the other American people at risk. That is not okay with me. I would go after every which one of them until my last breath to make sure they paid for what they have done. And all these rich people, elites, like that Walmart broad, whatever her name is, okay, she should be held accountable. Because if you are, let's just say hypothetically, if somebody says to me, oh, Maria, I need you to do this job for me and, get rid of this person, and I get caught, I'm going to sing like a canary. Well, this one said for me to do this. That is an accomplice.
No, you're dead on. Maria, you're absolutely, her name is Christy Walton, and she's the heiress of Walmart, the Walmart fortune. She's a billionaire. She's very rich, never earned a penny of it, but, let that go. Look, she put out a huge ad in the New York Times, full page ad, urging people all across the country, leftists, progressives, Marxists, socialists, anarchists, saying now is the time for this No Kings protest. And this Saturday, June 14th. And and they've already got locations. Oh, by the way, they're going to blanket Massachusetts. You look at that map of all these planned protests that they have. It's not just Boston or Worcester or, some of the bigger areas. No. They're going in town after town after town. But around the country, they're hitting every major city. They're hitting a lot of these towns. They're looking at 1,500 protest sites. 1,500 this Saturday. And she's bankrolling all of it. Now, I'm telling you, if someone dies, or if there's real massive looting and rioting because of this, she has to be held responsible. She has to be held accountable. Because you're right. That's like paying somebody to do a hit. Okay, well, you didn't pull the trigger. Yeah, but you paid for it. You provided the money and, the opportunity and the guidance and the orders to do it. And that's what she's doing. She's deliberately fomenting unrest and potential riots in our country to take down Trump. The goal is explicit. They said, well, okay, this No Kings protest, what's the end game? What's the end goal? She says it openly. Bring down Donald Trump. So they want to bring down his government, and they want to force him to stop deporting illegal aliens, i.e. reverse the election. Now, if that's not an insurrectionist, I don't know what is. So, Maria, I'm with you, not 100, but 1,000%. And thank you again for that call. Stephen in Newton. Thanks for holding, Stephen, and welcome.
Are okay?
I can hear you loud and clear, Stephen. Please, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to say something. As I was taking a morning walk, I wanted to say something else, but as I was taking a morning walk, I met a guy that I sometimes bump into, and I said, "Oh, I know you. Yeah, I know you too." I said, "Do you listen to Jeff Kuhner?" Because sometimes I actually sometimes I walk in the street and I say, "You listen to Jeff Cornell?" "Yeah, I'm listening to him right now." So this guy said, "No." He goes, "I'm a liberal." And Trump says he's a dictator. He's having that parade for himself this Saturday. It's just for himself. I said, "No, it's for America." "No, it's for himself." And he walked away, and I just called him a fascist. So I'm not going to talk to him again. But another thing is it possible to use military helicopters to drop smoke bombs onto these protesters, or would that be martial law?
Well, no, Stephen, it depends. He's mobilized the National Guard. You have Marines now who've been put out to the streets of L.A., but they're just there to guard federal buildings. But you know what, Stephen? Do me a favor. Hang on. I want to come right back to you. I don't want to rush the answer because there's a lot of things they can do to control this. I'm up against the break. Right back. 8:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Okay, let me go right back to Stephen in Newton. And Stephen mentioned that he met one of his liberal, what do you want to call them, people in his neighborhood, one of his liberal neighbors. And this liberal is going on about, Trump's throwing this military parade for him because he's a dictator. That's what dictators do. No, the parade is to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. Plus, it's also Flag Day. So it's kind of a twofer. And as Trump said, we're going to also celebrate the fact that we won World War II. We're going to start celebrating our military victories as other countries all over the world do. You know, it's time to start uplifting our military instead of constantly, trashing them and bringing them down. And then Stephen made the point to add to this, Jeff, could they use military helicopters and, drop smoke bombs or tear gas or whatever on protesters, but from above? Well, you've got the National Guard. They've been deployed. You have U.S. Marines now, almost 300 in L.A. They're there to protect federal buildings. If the situation continues to spiral out of control, escalate and expand, then yes, there's no question they can bring in military helicopters. Yes, of course they can use, smoke canisters or tear gas. They've been using tear gas almost since day one of these protests, but that's by cops on the ground. But no, you can also drop them in from the sky. And I think we're going to find out just how serious the left is. If this is all, pardon the pun, smoke and no fire, or if they're really serious now about bringing Trump, bringing Trump's presidency down. Because they are barking, they are talking a very big game about the No Kings protest. I see signs for it everywhere here in the greater Boston area. I'm inundated with emails from left-wingers, leftists, Democrats, saying they're going to show us on Saturday. So the way they're talking, they're acting like I think what's obvious now is that they're trying to recreate the 2020 BLM riots, the so-called Summer of Love. They're trying to recreate massive rioting, looting, burning in city after city after city. And what they're hoping for is that we will overreact or the National Guard will overreact and someone will get shot or killed a la George Floyd and turn someone into a martyr and then use that as the spark to unleash, basically the Summer of Love 2.0. And because they're convinced that the Black Lives Matter riots played a key role in causing Trump to lose the election. Now, I think the election was stolen, but in their mind, they think that was a key reason why Trump lost the 2020 election. That politically it was a disaster for him. So they want to replicate it again. So they want mayhem. They want violence. They want mass looting. They want burning. They want gunshots. They want street battles and street clashes. They want to see what BLM did in 2020. They want to see it now, but in even more cities and across the country. And if that is the case, Trump has warned them. He is going to go very heavy. In fact, he's telling them, don't do it. He goes, I'm telling you, don't do it. So, Stephen, that's the answer to your question. Yes, military helicopters can be used if need be. And I hope they're not. I hope there's not a need for them. But we're going to find out on Saturday. And, Stephen, you got to tell your liberal neighbors that throwing a parade has nothing to do with Trump's birthday. He doesn't need to throw a military parade to celebrate his birthday. It's the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. It's going to be a great parade. And frankly, it's long past due that we started to celebrate our men and women in uniform. When was the last time the country threw a real proper parade for our heroes and warriors? Stephen, final word to you.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you so much for clarifying that. I'm in a very liberal area. I don't talk to many people. I know their viewpoint, and they've been brainwashed by the media. You could tell them that Obama and Bill Clinton deported millions of people. They'll probably go, huh? They probably won't even know about it. They weren't protesting Obama or Clinton back in the days, but they're always protesting Trump.
Well, you nailed it, Stephen. That's because you're right, Stephen. You're completely right. That's because they're brainwashed. They're completely indoctrinated and brainwashed. They've been propagandized. And this is relentless propaganda. When you tell them Bill Clinton deported millions, or when you tell them Obama deported millions, or that George W. Bush deported millions, and in total they deported, over 10, 15 million illegals, the overwhelming majority, non-judicial deportations, i.e. no quote-unquote due process. There wasn't a final order from some judge in an individual adjudicated case. And they're like, what? So what? Was Bill Clinton now a dictator? Is he a king? Well, was George Bush a king? Was Obama now? Was that a dictatorship? Was he a king? And, what's really disgusting, Stephen, in fact, and thank you very much for that call, is how the media now, you got to listen to this, the media is feeding into this narrative. You can tell they want the country to erupt on Saturday. And they're doing everything they can to add fuel to this No Kings protest, this mass countrywide, nationwide protest. So this is Caroline Leavitt at her press briefing. This is a question now. These are the kind of questions the media is asking her. Listen to this. Roll cut 5. Mike.
You mentioned foreign flags being flown during these protests. There are protest activities being organized for this weekend. Part of it are Democrats saying they want to reclaim the American flag. It's also being titled No King's Day. Does the president see himself as a king? And does the White House expect to see American flags being flown during these protests this weekend?
The president views himself as the president of the United States of America. This is a constitutional republic, and we want to see all of our citizens be proud of the country in which they are given the privilege and the blessing to live. And I think that those images of foreign flags being waved by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city, I have photos of that here to show you, with this violence and destruction that occurred, is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns. This is his city, and President Trump saw these images and he said that is not going to be accepted or tolerated, and hence why he deployed the National Guard and United States Marines, who have helped to quell that violence.
Notice, does the president see himself as a king? I.e., a monarch, a dictator? Is that what he sees himself as? Now listen to this question. Roll cut 7. Mike.
The president
warned that any protests on Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
What question? So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question.
Of course, yeah. So the president would allow a peaceful protest? Are you sure? They're trying to feed into this narrative. He's a king, he's a tyrant, he's a dictator. 850 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are jammed. Tony in Somerville. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
A long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, Tony.
First of all, I'd like to say is, I want to commend you for all the good work that you do.
Thank you,
Tony. You are a true American patriot.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Now, I'm telling you the reason I called. I was reading a June 11th edition of the New York Post. And I don't know if you saw this, but some of you know you would never see this thing in the Globe or the Herald. It's a PPE kit, which is a Protester Protective Emergency Kit, being distributed by a non-profit, which I think is a treasonous organization, Operation Healthy Hearts. Now, with the small picture, it shows it, and it's all labeled, okay? But I wanted to see just what was in this kit, see how well these protesters are sustained. And I took a magnifying glass, and I got the listing of it, and I want to share it with you and the listening audience.
Please, go ahead, Tony.
Okay, here it goes. Water bottle, sunscreen, hydration sticks, tote bag, gauze, candy, pair of gloves, face wipes, bandages, a red card showing your rights, which I think is funny, umbrella, face masks, and eye drops. So these protesters mean business. And I think they're all traitors. They should all be arrested. And the ones that shouldn't be here should all be deported.
Tony, you are not 100, as I like to say. You're 1,000% correct. And the group that's distributing this and funding this, and I'm going to talk about them in the next hour, is a group called CHIRLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. And it's a very dangerous group. It's a communist group. It's an open Marxist group, very anti-American, very well funded. And everything what you said is completely true. You know what else they also give them? A card with the lawyer's name on it, because they're providing them with lawyers should they be arrested. So it's basically a protest kit, a riot kit. And they're all getting paid. That's another thing. It depends which group they're associated with. Some are a little cheaper. Some are a little more, a little more generous, but they're all getting paid. So whether it's $30 an hour, $40, $50, some are as much as $100, $200 an hour. It depends on the group, but they're all getting cash per hour. They're all getting these kits that you laid out very well. And they're also, lawyers are waiting for them once they're arrested. And you're right. This is pure treason. It's just pure insurrection. Now, in LA, they've arrested just last night over 330 of them. They were clashing with police, throwing bottles, rocks at police, Molotov cocktails, you name it, everything. Over 115 of them are illegal aliens. So many of those that are getting arrested are illegals. Many of them, frankly, have been deported multiple times. So they're openly in bed with illegal aliens. I believe I know with foreign governments. And you're right. This is pure treason. Every illegal arrested now should be deported. Period. Full stop. And those that are U.S. citizens, they should throw the book at them. Tony, I'm just curious. Did you ever think you would see in the United States of America non-profit groups, NGOs, literally handing out equipment to people in order to engage in violent protests and riots? Did you ever think you would see that in the United States of America?
In my lifetime, and I'm 74 years old.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm 55. I'm 19 years younger than you, but I never thought I'd live to see the day. And to have the full backing of the media and the full backing of the Democratic Party and the full backing of Democrat governors and mayors, blue states and blue cities all across the country. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you told me this 10 years ago, I'd say you're crazy. Really. I'd say you're crazy. I'd say you belong in a mental asylum. Now, look where we are. And that's why Trump has to crack down and crack down hard. Tony, thank you very much for that call. Really good call. Don't be a stranger. Call again, Tony. Okay, very quickly now. I just want to play a couple cuts. Go right back to the phone lines. Trump made big news yesterday. So, remember, the No Kings protest, okay, it's coming up on Saturday. Big. 1,200 to 1,500 cities, towns, areas, sites that they want to target. And so Trump was asked point blank, if this thing gets ugly, if it turns violent, like in LA and like in other cities now, what is going to be your response? Roll cut 20, Mike.
And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
Now, of course, the media did their job, lying about what he said, twisting, manipulating, distorting what he said. He's going to crack down on peaceful protesters. This is a dictatorship. Again, the same tape over and over and over with these losers. Okay? They're liars and propagandists. They just lie. That's all they know how to do is lie. And so Trump gets off the tarmac, St. Andrews. And they say, what do you mean when you say you're going to use big force, heavy force? Well, what do you mean? Well, you're going to start slaughtering peaceful protesters? Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 21A, a mic.
What do you mean by very heavy force will be met with the protest?
Oh, the military will be very heavy force. I'm very proud to tell you that. They might as well turn around. They're wasting their time. Some of them will end up in jail for a long period of time. They use weapons. That concrete is a weapon, a dangerous weapon. Worse than a brick, heavier than a brick. And they were dropping it off bridges and throwing it at soldiers and police. They're not doing that.
So what he's saying is if they try the same tactics as they're doing in Chicago, in Atlanta, of course, in Los Angeles, in Austin now, and other places, but L.A. in particular, you start with these Molotov cocktails. You start burning cars. You start with the cement, the cinder blocks and the pieces of concrete and the rocks and the glass bottles. And you start with this insurrection and violent rioting. Then I'm telling you, we're going to hit you and we're going to hit you hard. And we're going to arrest you and we're going to federal charges. Trump is saying now, I've told Pam Bondi, we're not beating around the bush anymore. I'm not leaving it to these blue states or these blue cities. They're not going to go get off easy. They're going to be federal charges, and they're going to be spending years in jail. Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Yes. I'm glad I was able to get on. you inspired me to say this one thing when you said about the 250th anniversary of the Army.
Yes.
My dad was awarded Soldier of the Year in the Army in the 70s, you know, like up before the woke. It was your granddad's Army, you know, but the main point that I called about was we voted for Trump, or, you know, if you have a regret that you didn't vote for him, well, you know, in marketing class or whatever, they say every time you make a purchase, you're actually voting in a financial way. So maybe stop shopping at Walmart if they're one of the ones funding all this crap. Don't shop there then. Wouldn't that be a peaceful protest way of saying you don't support that cause?
I agree with you 1,000,000%. Okay? Let me up it. I usually go 1,000,000%. Now, Kim, let me just put my cards on the table so that you know where I'm coming from. I don't shop at Walmart. I don't. I know it's cheaper. I know many people do, and you got to do what's best for your family. Okay? So I want to state that to everybody. Hey, look, you got to stretch a dollar. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You got kids, you know, whatever, kids to feed, grandkids to take care of. I understand. I'm just giving you my perspective. Walmart to me is an outlet store for communist China. Not everything, but a lot of what they sell at Walmart is made in communist China. I don't buy stuff from communist China. That's why I never shop at Walmart. I'm just being honest with you. So I've been boycotting Walmart now my whole life, basically. So Grace and I just don't shop at Walmart. But now, with this heiress, Christy Walton, funding, bankrolling this massive No Kings protest on Saturday, and taking out that full-page ad in the New York Times, and urging everybody, look, this is going to be in 1,500 areas or cities or towns. So it's, in other words, you can't miss one. If you want to go, there's one close to your neighborhood. You know, it may not be in your town, but it'll be like 5 or 10 miles away. So she's calling for a nationwide insurrection. After this, I'd boycott Walmart. And why? Because, you know, she's not doing it. Look, remember, this so-called No Kings protest, it's Christy Walton, it's George Soros, all these people that are funding this, it's his son Alex Soros, it's these big globalist billionaires, these huge Democrat donors. Well, what did they do with Joe Biden? They were the ones who kicked him off the ticket and installed Kamala, no primary. No primary. They were the ones who anointed Kamala Harris to be the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. They were the ones who, remember under Joe Biden when it was obvious, you know, this was, a year before they got rid of him. Hey, he's finished. I mean, mentally, he's gone. They said no primary. Nobody can primary Joey. Nobody. So the ones that wanted to force Biden on us, even though they knew he was mentally finished, and then when he finally couldn't do it anymore, the ones who then forced Kamala on the country, you're lecturing us about no kings? Are you kidding me? These are the globalists who oppose Trump's, not just his opposition to open borders and his support for mass deportation. Remember, Walmart makes a lot of their money from communist China. You think they want Trump to impose tariffs? You think they want Trump to contain communist China and end these trade deficits? No. Walmart is rooting for China. They're essentially a front group for communist China. And now it's open sedition against the President of the United States. Literally, they're trying to overturn the election of 2024. So you're right, Kim. Boycott Walmart. Boycott them now. Boycott them forever. Final word to you, Kim.
My husband is the Teamster in New Hampshire, and there are a lot of the guys that they don't support any of this stuff places might be different, but there's still a few good old boys in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, no, I know, and there's a lot also in the Midwest, and there's a lot in the South, and those are the people that help put Trump in power. And I got to tell you, Kim, what the Democrats are now doing, you take this to the bank, they're driving even more construction workers, steel workers, Teamsters, union people, working class people, even more now into Trump's camp and into the Republican Party. People are disgusted by this. There's no defending what they're doing. There's no defending it. Kim, thank you very much for that call. Okay, very quickly, for all of you, and I want to give a big hat tip. This is Peter Schweitzer, who I think is one of the best investigative reporters and one of the best writers in the country. He has done a brilliant job connecting all the dots. So just so that everybody knows what has happened, who is funding these riots, this insurrection, these protests, and of course, no kings. So and Peter Schweitzer has done a great job putting it together. So this is really his research. I'm just repeating what he has corroborated, and he's tracked down the money, and he's got, I think pretty much he's put the puzzle together. So remember this, okay, and Schweitzer is warning us. Yes, these are leftists. These are communists, Marxists, anarchists, no question. But what he's trying to warn us is there are also foreign powers at play here. Now, what started the initial riots on Friday night, last week in L.A., was a raid on L.A.'s fashion district. And why L.A.'s fashion district? Because this is where the Mexican drug cartels were operating their money laundering operation. So this is tied to the drug and criminal activities of the Mexican cartels. So the ICE raids were actually a strike on organized crime, foreign organized crime, the cartels in Mexico. And one of the top people that ICE was targeting was a guy who works for the cartels. His name is Esuin Uriel Castro, like Fidel Castro. Now, this is a man who has been deported multiple times. He has been convicted of molesting children. He's a child molester, convicted child molester. He's also been involved in human trafficking, in drug trafficking, and in money laundering. So these were the kinds of people that they were targeting. The media lied and said they're going after day laborers at Home Depot. They're just picking them off the street. No. Yes, some of these people were working at Home Depot, but these were murderers. These were rapists. These were some of them were gangbangers or had ties to gangs. And they were working in that whole area, in that fashion district, which is essentially a massive money laundering operation for the cartels. So Schweitzer's point is a lot of the money and a lot of the troops on the ground that are rioting and rampaging and burning are tied or funded by the Mexican drug cartels. So this is foreign interference from the cartels into California, into Los Angeles. Another key piece of the puzzle, and I talked about him, but just Schweitzer nails it down. This American billionaire, he's an American citizen, Neville Singham, Singham. He is a billionaire, an American who has relocated and now lives in Shanghai. He has made, in China, he has made his billions pushing Chinese propaganda and influence in America and around the world. Now you're going to say, well, Jeff, how is he connected to all this? He is the massive financier of the Party of Socialism and Liberation. It's literally, look it up, don't take my word for it. It is a communist party that is openly pro-Beijing. Singham is tied at the hip to the Chinese Communist Politburo, to Xi Jinping, to the Vice President of China. Essentially, he works hand in glove with the Chinese Communist leadership. So, as Schweitzer points out, Singham is funding a lot of these people that are rioting, confronting police, doing everything they can to burn LA to the ground. This is only green-lighted by the Chinese Communist Party. Beijing says jump, Singham says how high. So what you have is, through this Party of Socialism and Liberation, you have, I kid you not, Chinese foreign influence now. They're trying to subvert us from within. There's another group. There's about 4 or 5 of them. Another one, and this one I did not know about until I read Schweitzer. Union del Barrio. Barrio. It's another communist front group, ties to the Mexican government. Direct ties to the government in Mexico City. And they're not just a communist group, an openly Marxist, a revolutionary left-wing group. But here it comes. They call for the return, la reconquista, as they call it. They call for the return of the American Southwest to all of Mexico. They want California. They want Texas. They want New Mexico. They want Arizona. They want Nevada. They want everything returned and re-annexed to Mexico. So if you've been seeing all these signs about this is stolen land, or Viva Mexico with all these Mexican flags, it's them. Them and this group that I spoke earlier about, Churla, which, as I said a couple days ago, and Schweitzer confirmed it and corroborated it, $34 million in taxpayer money. Funded by the U.S. government under Biden and by Gavin Newsom in California. And of course, Christy Walton of Walmart and George Soros are bankrolling the no protest movement, the No Kings protest movement that's going to take place on Saturday. It's communist China, it's Mexico, it's the cartels, it's the globalists. 9:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quick, just an exclamation point on what I was laying out before we went to break. What is now clear, thanks to Schweitzer's excellent reporting and research, is the Mexican drug cartels are behind this. The government of Mexico is behind this. The Chinese Communist Party is definitely behind this. And on top of that, you've got very powerful globalist billionaires like Christy Walton of Walmart, like George and his son Alex Soros. They're helping to bankroll not just the protests the last week, but also the big No Kings protest on Saturday. Now, on top of that, there are 2 unions that are playing a very important role. One is the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. They are also, a lot of the rioters are SEIU members, and SEIU is helping to fund this as well. And of course, the teachers union, Randy Weingarten, who is dead set against getting rid of the Department of Education, school choice, returning education to local communities and the states. She's also now putting a lot of the teachers union money and support and muscle behind the big No Kings protest this Saturday. And you're saying, well, Jeff, doesn't this all go back to the Democratic Party? Bingo. SEIU, one of the biggest unions that back the Democrats. The teachers unions, huge supporters of the Democratic Party. not just local and state, but nationally. So what this is, my friends, in plain English, is an unholy alliance between the Democratic Party, the government of Mexico, the government of China, the Mexican drug cartels, and globalist billionaires to subvert, undermine, and ultimately bring down Trump's presidency. And just so that all of you know, the protests are spreading. In fact, now they're spanning coast to coast. So before we even get to Saturday, June 14th, it's not just LA, it's not just San Francisco, it's not just Austin or Dallas. We're talking now New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Portland, and Seattle now. They've now mobilized Antifa there. So they're making their stand, and they want to break Trump's back. They want to drive ICE out of every sanctuary state and city, and they want to essentially nullify the election and overturn the sovereignty and the laws of the United States. Make no mistake about it. This is the insurrection. 617-266-6868. Paul in Wellesley. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing? Yeah, it's pretty much everything you just said right now, Jeff, was what I was going to allude to. Yeah, it's all funded. Jeff, are we going to have another Summer of Love? I mean, this is, like I said, all this it's fake and it's fraudulent. But, Jeff, what I think we should do is, anybody in Kuhner country, we need to show up downtown Boston on Saturday. Everybody and anybody. Just get in their face, confront these people. Because if nobody shows up, it's designed to just intimidate. They think they can do what they want. But I'm sure if we we know where the usual spots. We know they ride it down to Boylston Street and those areas, BLM. I mean, we have to confront these people. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing it. We just have to show up, enforce, and make our own statements. And, hey, if we got to take a bucket of rocks with us, Jeff, and throw rocks, then we got to throw rocks. I mean, there's nothing else that we can really do. We'll just sit back, sit on our hands, and just take it, just like BLM, just like the pro-Palestinian protests. All this violence and destruction of property, we're just going to sit back and take it. Why don't we just show up? I mean, just law enforcement and ICE. I mean, just show up. Just go wherever you can.
Paul, I hear where you're coming from. I would say for this Saturday, please stay home. And I'll tell you why. Because the left wants us to show up. They're baiting us. What they'd love is for you and me to show up, Paul, and we throw rocks at them, or they throw rocks at us, then we throw rocks at them, and God forbid someone of theirs gets hurt. And then that's going to be the spark. That's going to light the tinderbox. They want someone to be killed. They want, in other words, for BLM to have burned and looted and run wild, they needed George Floyd to die. They needed a death. They needed a martyr. They want another George Floyd. They want someone to be killed, a left-wing protester, whatever, an agitator, and then they're just going to light this whole country on fire. And I go back to your original point, which I think is 1,000% correct. They want a repeat of the Black Lives Matter Antifa riots of 2020, the so-called Summer of Love. But believe it or not, they want it on an even bigger scale. They don't want it just in 5 or 6 or 7 cities. They want it almost in every city, in every major city, in every state in the country. It's a coup. It's an attempted coup. And so stay home, take care of your family, be safe, be alert. If they get violent, Trump will call in the National Guard. Trump will call in the military. Let the National Guard and the military will take care of them. Believe me, if they're itching for a fight, Trump will give them one. 9:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, super quick, because I want to get to the phones. here, but just to put a PS to the exclamation point, to show you how so much of this is coming from outside the country, how this is blatant foreign interference and foreign intervention in our internal affairs. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has gone not just on X and social media, but has delivered a high-profile speech in Mexico City telling ethnic Mexicans in America that if Trump goes ahead in the big, beautiful bill, they have put in a provision that would tax money that illegals send back to their families back home. Especially, and a lot of Mexican, illegal alien Mexicans send money back to they're called remittances. They send remittances back to their families in Mexico. In fact, they send about over, $65 billion a year just from the United States back into Mexico. To show you how much that is, that's 4% of Mexico's entire gross domestic product. Okay, so they need that cash from their point of view. Well, Trump insisted, and the Republicans agreed, we're going to start taxing these remittances. So there's it's either 3.5 or 4%. I'm getting conflicting reports on it. Some say 3.5. It may be the House version and the Senate version, and they're different. But anyway, it's either a 3.5 or a 4% tax on remittances. And Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, has said, if they go through with this bill and they tax the remittances 4%, she openly said it, riot, take it to the streets. Violent protest after violent protest that will make Los Angeles now look like a Sunday picnic. So she's openly threatening the United States. We have tens of millions of illegals, many of them from Mexico. They are our shock troops, basically our fifth column. And you tax our remittances, man, your streets are going to burn. Now, it's no coincidence. Huge story. The media is refusing to report it. This is all over Mexico, all over the Mexican communities in the United States. They've all read about it. They've heard about it on their Spanish language channels. One of the most powerful political leaders in Mexico, basically their version of the Senate Majority Leader. Okay, so think the equivalent of John Thune or House Speaker Mike Johnson. The president of Mexico's Senate gave a major press conference yesterday, and you can look it up. Please don't take my word for it. And unveiled the map of Mexico of 1830. Of 1830. And said, I want Mr. Trump to know that California is Mexican land. Texas is Mexican land. The entire American Southwest doesn't belong to you, the United States. It belongs to us. And we want it back. And as he held the map, he told them, you don't have a right to deport a single illegal alien because they are the ancestors to that land in California, in Arizona, in New Mexico, in Nevada, in Texas. And he's openly said, you go after the illegals, we will re-annex the Southwest. Now, of course, we can say, come and try and take it. You know, we beat you in the War of 1848, we'll beat you again. But that's not the point. They are now openly, publicly, flagrantly, not just egging on these rioters and these seditionists. That, you know, who do you think is, you know, why are they waving the Mexican flag? It's all being, not all, but a lot of it is being coordinated from Mexico City, from the current leftist anti-American regime in power. So what I'm saying is there are a lot of very nefarious, dangerous foreign forces at play. Mexico wants Trump. He wants Trump's presidency to collapse. Mexico wants Trump's government to fall. China wants Trump's government to fall. The globalists want Trump's government to fall. The cartels want Trump's government to fall. The Democrats and the globalists want Trump's government to fall. And that's why, for whatever reason, I think it's because they look at the polls and they see he's too strong. Like, in other words, it's now or never. But for whatever reason, they have made their line in the sand. They're going to go after him, and they're going to go after him now. And that's why they're pushing these protests everywhere. And they claim Saturday will be their culmination. So we shall see. Mike in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome. Mike?
Hello?
Mike, go ahead. You're on the air.
Jeff, I have 2 points.
Yes.
She is bought and sold by the cartels. That's why she's saying that. She has no guts, that so-called president in Mexico. And I am so sick and tired of the Republican senators and House of Representatives. They are doing nothing. It's the same handful that speak out. The rest of them, they sit back, and they're probably bought and sold by China themselves. Because, they're not doing anything to help Trump. Trump is all alone there in Washington, D.C., fighting for the American people and the taxpayers and for the laws of this country. We're sick of it. And I'm telling you right now, MAGA is getting very, very pissed off. And let me tell you something. We're going to go to the streets peacefully soon. We're tired of this. I go out every once in a while in Saugus and Wakefield, and somebody gets in my face, it's over. Because I got something in my pocket that will sting them or taser them so they stay away. That's all I got to say, Jeff.
Well,
and
Mike, God bless you. Honestly, Mike, honestly. And your point about Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, you are 1,000% correct. She is owned like a $10 streetwalker by the Mexican drug cartels. You are 1,000% correct. Mike, God bless you and thank you for that call. Bob in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. So the opposite side is having a rally this weekend at 1,500 locations. And yet, as we watched our country get invaded the previous 4 years, and by the way, this isn't the insurrection. The insurrection began when, they stole the election from President Trump.
Yes.
And then we watched our country be invaded, and our side did nothing. We sat back. We kept being quiet. We watched city after city, state after state get invaded, and we never had one such rally to oppose the invasion, not after Laken Riley was murdered, not after several other people were murdered, not after we watched our kids get, OD on drugs and fentanyl and all this stuff. And yet now all of a sudden, we're surprised at what's going on here. And, President Trump can't do this by himself. We, the people, have to help him. The people that elected him, that wasn't a done deal. I mean, we have to go to the streets. I agree with the previous caller that, we have to start confronting these people. Silence is compliance. If we just keep our mouth shut and let them do what they want to do, this is going to continue and continue.
Well, Bob, if you don't mind, can you please hang on because I'm up against a hard break. Look, you're asking the $64,000 question. And I'm not saying let's not hold counter rallies or protests. I'm saying let's not do it this Saturday. Let's not give the left what they want. But we'll continue, I promise, next. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, I want to go right back to Bob in Raynham. Bob, listen, I hear you, my brother. I really do. You're saying, look, we can't be silent. We can't allow this to keep going on and on and on. I hear you. Bob, I want to play a cut from President Trump. And this is what Trump is now telling all of these so-called anti-ICE protesters that are planning their big day on Saturday, their so-called No Kings protest. Roll cut, Bob, I'll play the cut, then I want to get your reaction. Mike, roll cut 20.
And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
So, Bob, my only point is just this, and of course, you know, you can agree to disagree. Trump is saying, look, I'm going to hammer them with the National Guard. I'm going to hammer them with the military. I'm going to hit them so hard, they won't know what hit them. In other words, stay home. If they get out of hand, the military will take care of it. The National Guard will take care of it. What say you?
Yeah, but then that plays into their narrative that President Trump's a dictator. We the people have to support President Trump as well. I mean, he's as he always has been. He's in a damned if he does, damned if he doesn't predicament, you know, based on everybody that opposes him. But if we, the people who are, you know, I mean, you know, we really haven't done anything to this point while we watch the entire invasion. And I'm talking to the people in your audience, in this audience, and, you know, we're letting our kids and our grandkids down for allowing what's happened to happen. And we really should, you know, when you kiss them good night tonight, you should really apologize to them, because this isn't going to change. I mean, we allowed these people in here. They're never going to get these people out of here. That in 20 years, it's going to be 50 million of them, because they're going to multiply, and our country is going to be gone. It's really going to be gone. We're watching the end of the American empire, and the globalists will ultimately win. I'm sorry to say, but we're not helping. We're not doing anything to support the president. We voted him in, but beyond that, everybody's sitting on their hands. And like one of your previous callers said, you know, the unions aren't there anymore, the construction workers, because we've all been bought and paid for, really, because of the government jobs and the pensions, and everything's tied to the government. And it's sad to say, but everyone's afraid to speak out. And, you know,
interesting.
Back went up big.
Bob, I got to tell you, very interesting. Look, we're going to talk about this some more tomorrow, I promise, but you've given us a lot to chew on. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Okay, Ronnie in Boston. Thanks for holding, Ronnie, and as always, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
Ronnie, my buddy, where have you been?
Man, trying to get through like everybody else. It's not easy these days. But, you know, Jeff, at the end of the day, if Democrats want to riot themselves out of existence, let them. And, you know, unfortunately, it's worked on your last caller. Woe is us. We sit on our hands. It's all our fault. Blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, the riots have worked on that guy. And he sounds like he's in his mid-70s, early 80s. What, are you going to go out there and face the protesters, dude? Come on, use your common sense. And a perfect example, Jeff, look at Christy Walton from Walmart. How many Walmarts have had to close down and leave deep blue areas, and yet she's pouring money out to fund the very people that have cost Walmart hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in closed stores and exclusively deep blue areas? How is that a sustainable recipe for success? The Democrats have lost the country. Their media is in total collapse. The government is totally supported by us. The border's completely locked down. Interest rates are low. Food prices are down. Gas prices are down. A big, huge trade deal just figured out with China. Everything's going our way. So let the Democrats riot themselves out of existence if that's what they want to do. They've lost the country, Jeff. 60% of the country supports Trump on immigration, and it's been a 20-point swing in immigrant voters over to the right towards Trump. One of your previous callers had it right, Jeff. This is the battle of the bulge. They know the culture has shifted. They know they've lost the country, and this is their last gasp to try to get it back. And it's going to fail spectacularly, Jeff. Spectacularly. It already is.
Well, and Ronnie, I think what Trump is, I think this is his game. And I think it's a brilliant, if it's 3D chess, he's playing a very good game of 3D chess. Let them riot in other cities. What's he going to do? Call in more National Guard troops, more military troops, and then they stay, and they're going to help ICE finish all the deportations. So in other words, it's like, okay, you keep rioting, I keep adding more troops, I have enough manpower, I can deport all of you. And you're right, public sentiment says deport all of them. So you're right, in a sense, these riots are politically, for the Democrats, their death knell. I love the way you phrased it. They're rioting themselves out of existence. Look, this is it, my friends. I mean, you want to talk about, the ultimate battle. Here it is. We'll have a lot more tomorrow, I promise. Bye-bye.